Hey guys, welcome back to MNA, episode 5. Since I've slowed down my reviews, I'll be hopefully making these once a month now. If you don't know how this series works, I took these movie suggestions from MNA episode 4. If you want me to talk about a movie, just comment on this episode and I'll be sure to talk about it in episode 6. I might start restricting the amount of movies just in case this series blows up, but for now, everyone who comments should make it in. Okay, let's get into it. Alright, Lips9850 gave me Oldboy. What a way to kill the mood. Oldboy is easily one of the most disturbing films I've seen, from its extreme violence to its disgusting material. I've heard a ton about Oldboy, and before this I had actually never seen it. I've only seen one other movie from the director of Oldboy, Park Chan-wook, being Decision to Leave, which is pretty good. All I really knew about this movie specifically was a vague memory of the hallway fight scene and that there was a big twist at the end. Anyways, it's really hard to talk about this movie, so I guess I could start off with how gross it is. The violence put on display here works so well. There is so much torture, death, tongues getting chopped off, everything you think is gonna happen happens, and it just keeps piling up as the film goes on. The violence and action here is great. It really fits the slow descent into madness this movie takes. It starts off pretty grounded. Our main character is just living his life before getting kidnapped and thrown in a room for 15 years. Okay, maybe not that grounded. Anyways, these first 15 years we spend in the film are great. This movie opens in a really weird way. Our main character explains his story to a guy while holding him above a roof. This first 45 minutes or so of the film is so well done. We go through Odesu's 15 years in this room and how he eventually escapes. The way this movie communicates time passing is also so good. We start with a shot of him first getting thrown in before quickly cutting to this completely disgusting monster. It's handled really well. He loses his mind in a couple years, but as the years go on, he begins to gain motivation to break out and starts getting stronger and stronger by training more and more. This makes so much sense. He spends his years grieving and crying before rising up to escape. Once he does, he awakens from a coffin, one of the most iconic moments from the movie. I love how this giant field he awakens in is revealed to just be a little grass patch. The way this movie is shot allows for such great unexpected moments like this field scene or the big twist at the end. Anyways, after awakening, he finds a guy about to kill himself and then he takes him by the tie and we cut back to the opening for this movie. I think this is a neat way to showcase our lead's start and end of his 15 years in prison. It is very strange and hard to get used to, but explains the narration and tone of this movie's first third or so. We spent a lot of this film after the 15-year gap just following our main character as a realistically broken person who only wants revenge. Like the scene of him eating that fish alive is so well done. How did they do that? Anyways, our lead basically goes on a rampage trying to take revenge, which leads us into the hallway fight, which is the best scene in the movie and it's not even close. I felt so gripped by how well shot it was. It featured amazing music, amazing choreography, and that was before the shot started moving. Then it got even better. The fact it goes on for this long without a single slip up from any actor is wild. This is a magical movie experience. After this, the movie slows down a bit for me. The way this film communicates info is kind of hard to follow and a little distracting. I was down for Odesu looking for different restaurants and taking down different members of the organization, but after that it started to lose me a little bit. Him actually finding the place he was trapped in felt way too anticlimactic. Anyways, after all this build up, we finally get motivation for why our main character was trapped, and it's gross, obviously. Not telling you what this guy did, but it's so evil and messed up. The actual scene of him committing this act is so well done. During this flashback of our villain, we have this silly music as he experiences his childhood, but slowly the music begins to fade out and you just have to sit here and watch this horrific moment for multiple minutes. Finally, Odesu finds the villain before the giant twist of this movie is revealed. Unfortunately, I got spoiled right before watching this movie. I looked up the dark themes on Common Sense Media to see what I was getting into, which I highly recommend no one do, because I got spoiled on what this movie's twist contains. Now, I was still pretty caught off guard because I didn't fully know the twist in detail, but this twist is also just so well communicated. The music and acting sells the desperation of it all. Odesu completely breaking down here works perfectly. His actor really steals the show. I really don't want to spoil the twist, but to be vague with it, I love the idea of this being a revenge story, but not a revenge story from our lead's perspective. That's what I really got out of this twist. Anyway, the ending is depressing as hell, and this movie made me feel like trash. It's incredible, but I'm probably not watching it again because it's really gross. Plus, I think parts of this movie drag, and the way it handles women is pretty gross and not to its benefit, and so I'm gonna give Oldboy a low 9 out of 10. Moving on. Alright, Matt M gave me Tokyo Godfathers or Perfect Blue. I chose Tokyo Godfathers because I've already seen Perfect Blue and wanted to get more films out of director Satoshi Kon. This was extremely different from Perfect Blue. It's this casual, sweet Christmas movie on 3 homeless people trying to find a baby's parents, compared to the horrific, gory, confusing movie that is Perfect Blue. To start with more general stuff I like, the animation here is great. I liked it more than Perfect Blue. I love the facial animation. It works so well with the often silly tone of this movie. The character designs for these 3 characters might actually be perfect. For homeless people, they have the hardest fits ever? Miyuki is the coolest character ever. She doesn't even do anything cool in this movie, but her fit is so hard that it indirectly makes her cool. Anyways, the main appeal for this movie is the trio of homeless people. For a lot of this movie, they function as a group and it's pretty good. I really like their bond and how mean they are to each other, but this movie only really starts working once they all split up. Once we get a fully fleshed out story for each lead, I really felt attached to them, and once they all come back together towards the end of this movie, they feel like a perfect group. So let's talk about them. Jin is definitely my least favorite character, but he's still pretty good. He's by far the most mean and cold character out of the group, so he's usually the least interesting and open. His plot about the old man's life was quite strong. I really love that scene, but for the most part, he functions as an average homeless man. He steals and is constantly shunned by society. He's the character who mostly represents the dark side of how the homeless are treated. His arc with his daughter was nice too. She shows up at a really unexpected moment, and his relationship with her is really nice. I don't really like how everything he says about her before meeting her is a complete lie, but after that hiccup, he has a very strong bond with her. Plus, him smoking in the hospital at the end went hard. Next is kind of a tie because I can't decide. As I said, Miyuki is super cool, but she has the least to do in the whole film. She's a runaway and interacts with her father here and there throughout the movie. That's kind of it. She mostly functions as the middleman between the group. Hana is probably my favorite. I don't know, it's hard to decide. She's cool, I like Hana. This movie definitely has really outdated jokes with her, but the fact that she's treated like an actual human being was nice. Her story about the Blue Devil was really interesting, and I do enjoy how openly emotional she is throughout this movie. It's just the jokes on her behalf that get really annoying. Once the group is back together, we have this crazy off-the-walls climax, which really worked for me. I love how chaotic it got. I actually felt really stressed. The ending is kind of weak in my opinion. I wish it wrapped up everyone's arc instead of just Miyuki, but it works for what it is. I don't know if I'm being positive enough during this review, but I really liked this movie. It was so much fun and had a very strong, interesting message on homeless people in Japan. I genuinely liked it a little more than Perfect Blue, though I will have to eventually give that one a rewatch. And so I'm gonna give Tokyo Godfathers a high 8 out of 10. We're off to a really strong start with this episode. Moving on. Alright, Runas gave me Miracle Mile. I have never heard of this film in my life, and the only thing I knew going in was what I read off the Letterboxd description. I'm just gonna rip off the band-aid and say I didn't really care for this film. It's like half and half. One half I outright dislike, and the other half I think is really good. This movie starts on a really bad note. This opening was really not doing it for me. It felt way too off for me, plus I really didn't like our lead. He just didn't feel very charming or likable at all, plus his relationship with this girl felt really flat. After the first 20 minutes, the movie actually gets rolling, and I think this is where the film takes a big jump in quality. The main plot of Miracle Mile is on nuclear warfare and the panic surrounding it at the time. I really like seeing everyone start to go to further and further extremes to get out of the country in order to avoid the potential bomb. Our lead gets a lot better here. He starts off this movie as this cool, likable guy, which really fell flat for me, but now he's mostly just a completely panicked mess, and Anthony Edwards sold this part of the character really well. I feel like this turn in his character really works for the benefit of the movie. These panicking sequences are genuinely really tense, well directed, and well acted. This section of the film is really good and fun, but it all starts going downhill once our lead finds the girl he was looking for, Lucy. Once she gets thrown back in the film, it kinda starts getting boring again. The plot with her parents kinda suck, and Lucy herself kinda just gets reduced to an annoyance the main character has to put up with. Lucy having no idea what's going on goes on for way too long, and it starts getting really annoying hearing our main character refuse to tell her that nuclear bombs are coming over and over again. It's not just the relationship that doesn't work though, there's a bunch of scenes that are ruined. There's a really good scene here with our main character realizing he might have been wrong about the nukes when they don't show up. It was a good moment for his character and felt pretty sad. However, the nukes do end up showing up by the end of this movie, and the explanation for it is that I guess they were just late, I guess? This felt so cheap and lazy. Anyways, despite these flaws I have with the film, we get a very strong ending that I have no issues with. This movie is all over the place. There are some genuine great moments throughout, but this film also has a ton of issues. I really hate this central romance. They just didn't have a very good bond, which is crazy because these two ended up marrying in real life later on. Absolutely bizarre how that wasn't captured in the movie, but whatever. I think the strong aspects are enough to get Miracle Mile a high 5 out of 10. Alright, Ashes6152 gave me 9 to 5. I know literally nothing about this again. I think it was a Best Picture nominee, which is cool, but it becomes way more cool when you realize that this is a comedy. Like, what comedies get Oscar nominations? Anyways, 9 to 5 is about these 3 women workers going on wacky adventures that all center around Frank Hart, this very stereotypical sexist, successful businessman. It's interesting how this film depicts sexism in the workplace. They treat it in a very casual way, which is obviously meant to highlight the issue with sex discrimination in working environments. No one really cares and everyone knows, but they can't do anything about it. That's a really interesting angle. This movie is very normal and straightforward in its opening minutes. Everything is handled in a very mundane fashion. While not everything here is perfect, I really like this tone. I thought it represented the message very well. However, as the film goes on, this movie very quickly starts diving into a much more goofy tone. Once the 3 girls actually become good friends off their hatred for Mr. Hart, we get a very trippy sequence of them talking about how they would kill him. I thought this was kind of bad when it started because it really ruined those opening minutes, but it grew on me because of how insane these sequences got, especially especially the Disney characters helping out Violet poison Mr. Hart's coffee. After that, Violet does actually poison Mr. Hart's coffee, even though he didn't actually die from it. This part of the film is not very good. I think it's very predictable and very repetitive. Luckily, this movie goes in a very different direction. The girls quickly find out what's happening and are able to get off scot-free. Mr. Hart, however, now believes that the girls actually tried to kill him. That's what I really disliked about that previous plot. All the girls' motivation for this movie is their hatred for Hart, so kind of removing him from the film really lessened my enjoyment. Anyways, once they get back on track, this film starts getting real good. The other two girls that weren't Violet get a lot more characterization here. Mr. Hart is a lot more goofy. In general, this film gets way more goofy, which was nice. The stakes are raised. Pretty much everything works. I actually felt stressed during some of these sequences. What especially works here is that pretty much everything from before comes back. I didn't really care for this film's opening minutes because I felt like a lot of stuff was unnecessary, but pretty much all of that seemingly unnecessary stuff comes back during 9 to 5's climax. It's some really great stuff. The way the three girls actually win was really cool too. Hart technically wins because the system lets men come above women. So this ending shows that Hart still technically wins, but in a way that screws him over. The girls use the messed up system to their advantage. That might not be the best message, but it felt kind of realistic for the time and was clearly trying to say something. I really like 9 to 5, so I'm gonna give it a low 8 out of 10. Moving on. Alright, Dietem gave me Akira, or Akira. I'm just gonna call it Akira. I don't know how it's actually pronounced. I've been meaning to watch Akira for a while now since it's one of those extremely highly praised movies I know next to nothing about. Love the animation here. There is so much detail put into it. Love the trace effects on the bikes or how the lighting always completely changes characters. Stuff like that really works in this movie's favor. Everything here just looks so nice and clean. I also really like how Akira visualizes its world. All the graffiti and destroyed buildings work really well. I really like how it feels like we're already living in an apocalyptic world, but everyone just kind of lives in it. There's also a bunch of trippy, bizarre sequences here that also work really well, especially the ending. The visuals there are insane. I also really liked the score whenever it popped up, which wasn't very often. All of this kind of adds specifically to Testudo, who is easily the best character in this movie. He just goes completely off the rails as the movie goes on. He's like evil and stuff, but also really cool. Him getting the cape goes so hard. He has this mild jealousy throughout Akira, but the psychic torture just brings it to this absolute extreme. He kind of loses all motivation for anything, and I just think that's a really cool idea for a villain. Someone so psychotic that they just start to lose sight of everything they're trying to do, flip-flopping on their motivation constantly. The way his story ends off is also very strong, even though I don't fully understand it. For stuff I didn't like, everyone in this movie kinda sucks. They're all so hateable. I think it kinda works for the start of this film, and they're all like these biker thugs, so it makes sense. But still, I could not get attached to any of these characters, which isn't that big of a deal for a lot of the side characters since they're barely in this film, and it especially works for Tetsudo. He's probably the most likable out of the gang, so him ending up being the most evil worked. I really don't think this applies to Kaneda. I don't know if this is controversial, but I really didn't like him. The best stretch of this film is where he completely disappears for half an hour. I could not get into him. He's just kind of annoying the whole stretch. I think he gets a lot better when he's like an actual good guy, but there's no real arc for us to get there. He kind of just flips on a dime. Like, I actually thought he hated all his friends because the movie really doesn't establish that he does care until the very end. Also, the blue babies are stupid. They are so goofy, I cannot take them seriously. Still though, I think Akira was pretty good, so I'm gonna give it a solid 7 out of 10. Here's the ranking. Number 5, Miracle Mile. Number 4, Akira. Number 3, 9 to 5. Number 2, Tokyo Godfathers. And number 1, Oldboy. Thanks for watching. Make sure to comment movies and stuff. Episode 6 will be out a lot faster, aiming for halfway through next month. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and this is an epic outro.
That wasn't me. That was Kara. That was Kara. Kara killed him. What the fuck? What the fuck? Oh my god, that wasn't me. That wasn't me.